Welcome to Aware. We are dedicated to communicating information that inspires your positive growth and change. Are you interested in a peaceful planet? Are you interested in optimal health? Are you living with purpose? Are you enjoying your life? We realize each person can make a difference, and our mission is to empower your awareness. The choices that you make in every moment shape your life, and we encourage you to realize that you have your own answers and to always listen to your own truth. We invite you to stay aware.
Hello and welcome to the Aware Show. I am Lisa Garr and very, very happy to be here today. I am excited for this conversation because it's going to be talking about how do we manage the stressors of what is going on in our world today. And if you would like to listen to this at any time, if you missed part of the broadcast, you can always listen to our podcast. Wherever you listen to podcasts, just look up The Aware Show and you can share it with a friend if you love the information you're hearing, because that always helps. That's the whole reason we do this. So we can communicate information that inspires positive growth and change, because all of us are dealing right now with a world that is very chaotic. There is very easily to go into overwhelm once you watch the nightly news or the daily news, all of the stressful events that are happening between the school shootings and viruses and inflation and recession and constitutional changes, so many things that are happening. We're going to learn today how we do not run this through our bodies and ways that we can actually process this stress, which is unfortunately predictable. So joining me are two brilliant ladies to do this. Dr. Sue Morter, she is a master of bioenergetic theory. She's the author of The Energy Codes, which is an amazing book that goes through a 7-step system to awaken your spirit, heal your body, and live your best life. And also joining me is Anat Baniel. She is the founder of the Anat Baniel method. Neuro movement. She has developed an incredible method that is supported by brain science and intentionally, powerfully taps into the brain's enormous potential for change and learning throughout all of life. Welcome, Dr. Sue. Thank you for joining me.
It is a joy to be here always with you, Lisa, and I so look forward to where we get to go with our conversation today.
Me too. Very meaningful. And welcome, Anat. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that we've got all of us together.
I'm thrilled too, and I'm looking forward to the conversation too.
So let's address this whole concept of running all of the news and the events that are happening in our world and our micro events that are happening in our lives. How many of us run this through our bodies? Sue, if you could talk a little bit about what you're seeing and how that energy really kind of disturbs the body.
So, what we have recognized through epigenetics is that there are little antennas on the surface of the cells of our body that pick up energy from our environment. So when we're watching the news and we're having a reaction, we're creating an internal environment that these little antennas are receptive to. And they're picking up on that energy, and then they turn that inwardly to the inner workings of the cell of the body, and the cells then are determining what chemistries they will generate as a byproduct of this energy that they're picking up on. And so we start creating the chemistries of survival, of survivorship. We start creating chemistries of fight or flight simply because of what we're watching on TV, not because we're actually in the threat per se, but because we might as well be, as far as our bodies are concerned. So the bodies then are bearing the brunt, basically, of what is happening in our world. When we don't know how to deal with something consciously, we start shoving it, suppressing it, and compressing it inwardly. And those little antennas are picking up on that information and constantly responding as if everything that we're witnessing on the news is happening to us, especially when it's coming in mass the way that it is from every direction, every other day, something new occurring. And so it's time for us to learn how to manage our internal environment regardless of our external circumstances. And I believe that what's happening in the world right now is actually begging us to master this level of consciousness that we are being called to today.
I agree with you. Unfortunately, this is a predictable environment of constant chronic stress. And I know, and I love that you said that, it's begging us to come up with a new way of being. That's a really great point. Anat, are you seeing this also with your clients and your patients, what effects do you see that stress has on bodies?
Well, first of all, everything that Sue said, or Dr. Sue said, right? And it also activates what we call the lower centers of the brain. That means it's much more automatic. And so first thing needs to come in is awareness that it's actually happening. And by having this, a podcast, we're shining the light on it. People know they're stressed. People know that they're getting depressed. People feel depleted, or a lot of people say, I'm tired, right? So, and to build on what Dr. Sue said, in my world, I see movement as the mechanism to communicate with the brain, or in other words, the brain, if over, from birth, but maps the body to the brain, and the brain then tells the body what to do, right? And we can use the awareness and use movement to simple things to remind the brain that it is not in danger right now, even though you hear something on the TV, which is what you said, Dr. Sue. So I don't separate really between mind and body, and I mediate through movement. So when people are under stress, and it is a lot of scary stuff, is an enormous amount of also of uncertainty, which also brings in stress. We go into automatic reaction. It's built into our system to go into this reaction. But we have the power to override it and to upgrade it to a whole other quality. So that's
I'm yes, I'm wondering if there are, I mean, sometimes I just say to myself, okay, this moment is safe. I'm safe in this moment right here. And even though I might be sitting with someone with cancer or might be experiencing, things going on, and if this moment is safe, does that help, Sue, as a first step? Is there another 2, 3 steps that you could recommend after I determine this moment is safe?
Yes, it's an excellent thing to do. When we presence ourselves into this now moment, the system automatically can reconcile that while I saw something on TV, when I check in with myself, when I bring my attention on to self, I automatically trigger a different set of circuits in the brain and the body. And that internal reflection allows me to sense and feel into this sense of okayness that is actually here if I allow it to be. And something as simple as taking a deep breath in the belly will also activate parts of the nervous system that are responsible for calming us down. The parasympathetic nervous system. It also oxygenates the blood more rapidly when we take a deep belly breath, because the lower lobes of the lungs have more blood vessels. And so we automatically are oxygenating more blood. And that sends another message to the brain that says, all is well. We're okay. We've got enough air to breathe. We're okay right here in this moment. And those little antennas on the surface of the cell are starting to pick up on a different environment, because we're consciously intending, just by inquiring, how am I? By checking in, it automatically gives the subconscious the opportunity to be met and to be heard, if you will. And under those circumstances, it relaxes. And so we're kind of opening a trap door between the conscious and the subconscious in a moment like that, between the thalamus and the hypothalamus. And when that connection is being made, we can make rational decisions and our body will respond. When that connection is disconnected, no matter how much we think about relaxing, our body stays locked up in this fight or flight response. So when we're constantly bombarded with all these stimuli from the outer world, with all of the things that are happening at this time, it is certainly enough input to slam shut this trap door between the conscious and the subconscious, if you will. It's just like a connection, a line of communication that gets basically disconnected. And we're stuck now in this fight or flight. So deep belly breathing to slow your breath down, slow it down, breathe slower and deeper. Like if you can count to 8 or even to 10 on an inhale and on an exhale, it's going to start to elongate the breath. And when the breath slows down, the mind slows down. Not your thinking mind, but your worrying mind, your obsessing mind. That autopilot, knee-jerk reactive mind starts to slow down. Just lastly, I'll say I liken it to a ceiling fan. That mind gets going. It starts watching the news and it starts spinning like a ceiling fan, spinning so fast you would never stick your finger through it. But our healer within is on a totally different radio station. It's here on this beautiful essence and this movement like this. And here's the ceiling fan and here's the healer. And this healer is trying to rise up to our conscious level so that we can consciously heal ourselves and slow down and take care. But this thing keeps us from ever getting through. You never stick your finger through that. So what we're doing is learning how to slow down the mind so that we can get through that and work in tandem and experience ourselves above our thinking, worrying, analytical, survival brain that Anat was speaking about. This lower brain center that is centers that are just, obsessed with survival. If they're running the show, we are just pocketing all of the stresses that are happening in our world today. And if we can get up beyond the primitive brain into the high brain executive centers, we can make decisions and our body will respond in accordance. We're reconnecting what got disconnected. We're opening that trap door and allowing the whole body to be operating in consciousness. And when that's happening, we have a much better chance of maintaining our health and vitality.
I'm so curious about the link between that stress and disease and actual illness. And I know it's been studied, but I just can't think of the research right now. Is there a direct link between that high level chronic consistent stress and disease? And either one of you can answer.
There's a direct connection here. It is shown beyond the shadow of a doubt that when people are either in a high stress of short duration or a medium stress for a long enough duration, either way, it seeps into the subconscious and locks us into this fight or flight activity. That set of neurocircuits is full steam ahead. So whether it is something that was intense up to a year and a half ago, or something that has been moderately intense for even half that amount of time, it has a tremendous impact on the body's ability to come down out of that fight or flight response on its own. So we have to learn things to do to open the trap door and reconnect the circuitry so that our system can recognize that even though the battle is going on out there, that we're okay right here in this moment, and allow that resurgence of well-being and the healer being able to express itself again.
It's fascinating. We started this whole conversation, Jean and with Jean Houston and Anat and Dr. Sue and Marcy Shimoff and I are all in this mastermind with Jean. And we started this conversation when the war broke out in Ukraine, and we were all very devastated, feeling like most empaths do about the situation and feeling like, what could we do to help it? And at the time, we didn't even know it was going to be lasting for as long as it is in this current time right now that we're in. So with the fact that a lot of, unfortunately, that Ukraine has fallen out of the news cycle and other things have come back up and then it comes back in the news cycle. I don't know if that's because people are going into denial about it or just can't handle the normal day-to-day constant barrage of news. So Anat, I wanted to ask you, are there specific movements that you can suggest that can calm that nervous system down? I have recently, I admit, recently gotten into yoga. I don't know where it's been all my life. Oh my goodness. I'm so glad I just started taking yoga. Can you believe I've talked about yoga for how many years? And I finally now I'm addicted and I'm going like twice a week because I would just and I do it every day at home because it's saving my life right now. All of my injuries went away, everything calmed. What can we do if we're maybe not into yoga that you could suggest?
Okay, so I want to say a few things because talking about a war, like an active hot war versus, what we see here in this country, it's a very different level of the need for survival and devastation. There, things can be done because basically, also Dr. Su just referred to it, maybe with a different wording. We are learners, so everything tends to get habitual. So if somebody has a lot of stress, it's learned and it becomes automatic, and we generate it over and over again, and so it's important to do things that remind us that we can feel and be another way. And you spoke about breathing, and I was going to speak about breathing, and I want to enter it from a different place, because a lot of people, when we tell them take a deep breath or do belly breathing or things like that, they can't really do it. They don't quite know sometimes how to get to it. So I'm not going to give a formal, sequence of movement right now, but one of the things that people can do is to focus on the parts that participate in the breathing, but not so much of the breathing itself. So to do little movements like bending, like, because the rib cage needs to move, there needs to be freedom for the diaphragm to come and go, go up and down, and do little movements, maybe on exhalation, and then do variations of movement with the torso and the head and the neck while doing like those long exhalations, which are really useful. And so I don't give anything structured right now. That's not the context to do it, but just doing those variations as I pay attention to my shoulder blades, parts of my spine, at different positions. I can lie down, can sit, can stand on all fours. Then I just lie on my back, and my breathing usually spontaneously will be deeper, and I will have more say in taking a deep breath, have more say in taking a long exhalation. So this is just an approach to do when there's the stress, and then to find a moment. It can be like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and we all know can make a huge difference. So
Oh, that's
that's something.
that is great news. That is really great news. So the morning when I wake up and just do yogic stretches on the days that I'm not taking the classes is absolutely
Mm.
a great thing to do. And I know, Sue, you are a master yogi. You've taught for what, 30 years. Aren't you proud of me? I just finally
I'm
got
so proud to hear that you're on the mat. Oh my goodness. Welcome.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I remember the day that you and I did yoga, and I was so honored to take yoga from you. And my body said, "Ooh, this is something we want." And then several months later, I got into classes because I was having knee pain and back pain and shoulder pain and every pain. And I'm a cyclist, so most of what I do is linear.
Yes.
And it just made everything go away, while friends of mine were going into like knee surgeries and things like that. It all went away.
Yeah. Yes.
There's something to that 5,000-year-old technique you got there.
Yeah, there's some reason it's still around. What yoga does is it puts us into sacred geometries. It moves the body into systems of movement that allow energy to move through the body more easily. And what Anat is doing is also, profound in this way, as we recognize that there are certain ways that you can move the body that allow energy to move through it. And that energy is always trying to circulate. So we have to think in terms of, if we want to be in a lesser state of stress and a greater state of vitality, we have to allow the energy in our bodies to move. And when we think thoughts of that shouldn't be happening, and this is horrible, what's happening over here, and I can't believe they changed this or did this or whatever it might be, those are all actions in our consciousness that are shutting us down. They're pushing away and shutting down in contractive types of thoughts. And the body follows the mind. The body follows consciousness. And so if we're having contracted conscious states, then our body contracts as well. And when our body contracts, now the energy isn't flowing through the body the way that it needs to for healing to be happening. So whether you're into yoga or you're familiar with body movement, don't feel that you're limited if you're not, because you can also get this energy to move through your body by softening your body. Just soften your body. Just soften in this moment. Melt your body while you're listening to this conversation. Just let it melt. And you'll be amazed at how often during the day you can recognize, wow, my shoulders were tight and I didn't even know it, but I'm now into this softening thing. So I'm noticing 20 times a day, could I soften right now? Could I soften right now? Could I release on the inside of my belly? Could I release inside of my chest something, anything? Is there something in there that could let go? And just by letting go incrementally like this, as Anat was saying earlier, just by these micro movements of consciousness and breathing and softening, you can literally create this environment that we were speaking about earlier that allows the body to feel in its little microcosm that I'm okay. And every millisecond that it gets a message of okayness, it immediately starts kicking in to rejuvenation and replenishment and repair. It will immediately start to do that. It is designed to do that. But if we never give it that opportunity until we go to sleep at night, it's just trying to get through the day and digest and filter and cleanse and, heal the things that are regular everyday activity. And it can never get caught up to get ahead of the game unless we get involved consciously and allow ourselves to breathe, to soften, to create space inside the body. At least that's why you're loving yoga. It's another thing. It creates elongation and stretch and opening. It creates spaciousness inside of us. And when the body becomes more spacious on the inside, our thoughts become more spacious. And we don't get caught up in the drama that's on the news, and we don't get caught up in the upset. We can be spaciously observing it and be rational to think about, what can I do to make a difference? Instead of just getting upset about it, how can I contribute? Well, one way that I can contribute is by keeping my wherewithal, my wits about me, instead of getting dramatic, and allowing that to make a contribution to the bandwidth of human consciousness at large.
And it might even stimulate neurochemicals that allow that executive function to come online. And
Right.
maybe the dopamine, maybe Anat, you could talk about that. What are some of the neurochemicals that release that allow you to make better decisions, that allow you to go into a forward movement rather than retreating,
Yeah.
pace you forward?
I want to just sort of, you see, one thing I want to it was interesting. So when you said about the softening, I was thinking literally this word. So it was kind of interesting. I think that I know from myself sometimes, and certainly in the past, when something that I considered really bad or horrible or war or things like that, to kind of pay attention to myself and to my breathing, it seemed like a luxury, seemed like an indulgence. And I think that before, I mean, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, okay, I'm now your student, right? And all hell breaks loose. And the feeling is, if I'm going to do this attention to self and this awareness and so on, it's like, first of all, I might miss the danger, right? I mean, I might get myself killed. But the other one is, it's too serious. I can't pay attention. So I think it's really important to invite people to know that that's not a luxury. This is the vitamins and the life force that will give us more chance to do well with ourselves and with others, and give our space to notice what's going on, because I think we're all talking about awareness here. And the chemicals totally are 100 in correspondence with whatever is going on. So, but what I feel that we're talking, or at least I can talk for myself, is we're introducing the possibility to make decisions, make choices. How am I going to be right now? How am I going to relate to this metaphorically or literal bloody situation, right? And I liked very much, Dr. Su, what you said when you talked about people get all riled up and watching the news, and it's and then you see everybody just, and it's very addictive. It's very automatic. It's very addictive. So, and I feel a little timid about telling people that are in extreme duress and in real horrible situations, to give them advice in this sense, but I thought about our conversation that we were going to have, and I thought, I feel that what I can offer is give them permission to have the experience they're having. And then everybody eventually sleeps. That means everybody eventually lies down to go to sleep, right? Or sits in a chair or something. And even if a person takes 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 1 minute, where they just give permission to say, okay, there's nothing to do right now. Let me do what, Sue or Nat said to do. And they'll fall asleep probably very quickly because they're exhausted. But just to remind the self that I can be also the other way. I can be also the other way. So I just wanted, that's what I kind of felt a need to contribute right now.
I'm really glad you did. I've had a couple of interactions with people in Ukraine that have called into my live radio show and so forth. And they, one night, a lady was actually listening to music because she needed something that was other than her reality to sink into with her kids. And she was in a building that was half, destroyed, but her apartment was still intact, and she was staying with her family until it was safe enough for her to leave. And she felt that she could listen to music that night. And it is incredible, the human spirit, how resilient, if you just give these little simple techniques a chance. They don't have to be monumental. I mean, not everyone can get to a yoga class. I'm saying you can do these micro movements or the breathing techniques while you're here in this chair or wherever you are, and it could really make a difference in the stress levels. But
imagine, I just want to say, imagine the contribution she's done for her children's whole life, because they're all in that situation, and she creates a space where they can have joy and do something that they like. I mean, this is quite remarkable that she could do it. And it doesn't have to be our children. It can be a neighbor that's panicking over something, or somebody that's all riled up about, whatever. So just the awareness there is that possibility, and then connecting it. And I'm so happy, you brought me and of course Dr. Sue to this, that if it's just theoretical, it's very hard to do. But when there's concrete feeling level that is generated through thought and generated through movement, that I can be tense. One of the things that I suggest to people who can't relax is to get more tense. It's a very common way to do it. You say, get more tense, and then they can let go the amount that they let go, that they added, right? So they get the sense of how to let go. Things like, so because if you, like you say, somebody who's freaked out and said, just relax. I mean, they just go crazier and crazier, right? So, yeah.
I want to address something you said. I'm sorry, but I love that. Now, thanks for explaining. That's why you do that technique of squeezing first and then letting go, and squeezing first and then letting go. So it sends the signal to the body that it's okay to release, and it gives a greater contrast.
You get mastery over that, because what does relax mean when you're tense? You don't know you're tense. But if you go further, then you start feeling the difference. And once you feel the difference, you have more say in what you're doing. Yeah.
Sue, you were mentioning something at the very beginning. You said that this is all happening so that we can have a greater sense of calling, or it's arising, a greater sense of calling is arising as a result. We can choose to answer that calling or not. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yes, life is always in support of our awakening. That's what's really happening here. Awakening from a subconscious level to a conscious level, ultimately to a superconscious level. That's what we're doing here in this earthly experience. And every single thing we encounter is actually designed to facilitate that process. And so while we're here, if we know that, we can start to look into the circumstances that are occurring and ask, what is life asking of me internally right now? If I can't control that situation, I need to manage myself. And if I can manage myself because of that situation, then that situation is actually helping me learn how to manage myself because it's so intense. And for me to manage myself under such intense circumstances, for me to start to get a handle on that, then that was sort of a prop for me to be able to find a new level of this internal management. And a byproduct of me learning to manage myself, my internal environment, my feelings, my sense ability, a byproduct of my ability to manage that is that I start generating different neurochemistry. And when I generate new neurochemistry that is now not survival based, it starts to enhance the healer within. It starts to elevate my states of consciousness. And the next thing you know, I'm operating above and beyond where I was operating before the stresses began in my life. If we allow it to serve us in this way, it will. And so one of the things that I wanted to mention that Anat mentioned, and just kind of circle around and emphasize this again, because it relates to the question that you've just asked, Lisa, is that if we're upset, the very best thing that we can do is embrace our upset, is to allow ourselves to feel the upset. And if we 100% come present to our upset with our conscious attention, it dissipates. But if we try not to be upset and we're half upset and half trying to push it away because we don't want to be upset, we never get it done. It never gets completed because the subconscious never feels met with the potential threat. But if I am feeling upset and I bring my attention to my upset and I 100% give my attention to it, my loving, compassionate attention to the part of me that is upset, like love the one who's upset, love the part of you that is upset right now with the rest of you. Take the rest of you and love the part of you that is upset. When you do this, we are embracing the old wounds in our lives that have collected over the decades of our lifetime, and we are approaching this now new accentuated version of it because life is giving us lots of opportunities to find that upset again. So go to it and embrace it and feel it. And find it in your body. Where is it? Is it in my chest? Is it tight in my chest? Is it in my gut? Am I have a knot in my stomach? Is it in my throat? Am I clamped down in my throat? And hug it. Like Anat was saying, hug it even more. Find the upset, the part of you in your physiology that is upset, and squeeze it, hug it as if you were hugging this wounded part of you, this child part of you that is freaking out about the things that are happening in this world at this time. And what ends up happening is a merging of the mind and the body and the breath and the spirit. The whole essence of us comes back together again, and a healing actually occurs because of an upset that we were having that was a reaction to something that we're either living in or we're seeing on the news or what have you. So in response, Lisa, it's like the world as it is begging us to awaken to a new faculty that we have in here, new faculties, and tying ourselves, bonding ourselves back together again, instead of being dispersed and scattered and externally oriented and driven by the outer world. It's calling us to come back home, gather yourself together, get yourself together, and love into that. And know that wholeness is right here inside of you. And there are no exceptions to that. It's just a matter of where do we begin? So begin with the urgency at hand. If you are freaking out, love the one who's freaking out. And then start to breathe slow in your belly, slow down your breath, bring your loving presence to the part of you that is upset in this moment, and watch what happens. You will rise up and build new neurocircuits that will allow you to transcend your primitive brain and start to activate these high brain executive centers that allow you to be transcendent of the immediate survival knee-jerk reaction in our circumstances, and then be able to make a contribution to the world instead of just trying to survive yourself.
I'm so glad you explained that. That is a very, very valuable technique. I've been in the last couple of bike rides that I've been doing very angry, and I just kept expressing the anger and during the ride, just to say, what am I so angry about, and why am I so frustrated, and what am I so angry about? And I know enough about myself to let that feeling just ride. Because if you're out there for 2 to 3 hours, it's going to eventually dissipate. And so I was upset with a car that clipped me, got way too close to me. It was a bunch of young kids and they were kind of hot rodding in these cars. And I was really upset with them. And already was just on fire. So I got up to the top of this hill, but I knew they were going to park at this lookout. And I went up to them to let them know, to teach them a lesson, to say, look, you can't clip a bike this close. It's not safe. And this kid looks at me and he goes, and he saw the bike kit I was wearing and he said, are you with Serious Cycling? I love that bike shop. I just bought a mountain bike from there and I really love going on mountain bike rides. And he just melted my heart right away. And I said, you know what? I was going to get upset with you because you were too close to me. Maybe you don't realize how close the car and the bike are and that we don't have a shoulder in the mountain roads. So could you give us a little more? And it was so great. It turned into a fantastic conversation because I was able to process through and recognize, why am I so freaked out right now? And it was, a lot's going on in life and in the world, and I sometimes tend to store it too much of my body. So here I had talked to this kid, and then all his friends came around, and we started talking about bike education. And it wound up being a great conversation. And it turned into a very friendly, loving conversation. And that's what transforms when you pay attention to that little gremlin inside. And we all get that way. And it's normal, by the way. But if you don't let the pressure off of it, it manifests into something worse, like road rage or something else. And you don't want it to get that far. These little techniques that Dr. Sue and Anat are giving you are pressure cooker relievers. And the stress is insidious. It gets underneath you no matter what. That is predictable. The idea is to allow time to soften just several times a day, belly breaths, getting into the little minor new movements that Anat was speaking about, to recognize that little aggro person inside and let her be heard and seen and expressed. These are just, everybody can do these techniques. And I'm really, really grateful because it makes it incredibly practical. And I just wanted to go, Anat, you were going to add something? Yes.
Yeah. So I love everything so that you said about the you just said, and you too, of course, Lisa. I want to just add to it when you describe the process. When I did my work, and in the end, it's a body, and you move an arm, and you move a leg, and you do it, and then miracles start happening, right? All of you know those miracles. And I asked, what about what I do works in the sense of what's happening there? And what you described, Sue, it's not just a collecting, but what the process you described for me literally upgrades the functioning of the brain itself. And the moment the system, the brain, and of course it's connected to the rest of everything, when it moves to an upgraded quality of self-organization, the energy upgrades the energy of the use of the brain itself, which is the organ that can do it more than any other organ in the body. The brain is built to self-organize and to upgrade itself. Then things happen, things just healed and spontaneous ability to do things we couldn't do before. And my experience, both for myself and I believe for the people I work with, is that when we do that through the different techniques and we upgrade our brains, we feel better. It doesn't matter what happens, we always feel better. That's how some people can have really difficult stuff, both in themselves, their bodies, or in their lives, and they're still well. These are those people that operate on this higher level. And it gives us freedom, and so I just wanted to say that everything you describe is really upgrading the quality in which we operate in general. And because we are learners, we get more and more. It's kind of like the road is paved to get from the being at the, the cave back up to the 30th floor. And then we fall maybe not all the way to the cave, but then we come back up. So that's how I understand a certain way to understand the process you describe. And people that operate that way create a much preferred reality, right? They don't run around shooting people and things like that.
Yes.
Right.
When
Well, I was going to ask you,
oh, sorry.
yeah, what about damaged brains? I mean, and Sue, if you could comment on this as well, where people
I,
do have,
I want to jump because the brain can get damaged, but what is left is the same. I mean, depends how far, and but in general, people have had stroke. It doesn't matter the story, but the brain that they have can be upgraded to operate and learn, and I know that Dr. Sue's work does that, and I'm experiencing. You take the brain, as long as it's the brain. I always say the brain is the brain is the brain. Of course, it's the whole self and the body. And you take what there is and you upgrade its functioning, and all of a sudden it can do things it's not supposed to do.
experience that all the time in your work. And yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that you work with babies as well, but you said you had an experience with someone who had a stroke that you helped them. Can you share that story?
I would love it. It's an email I got of a person I've never met or heard about before. And she's a young woman that went to Greece, a single mom with two 8-year-old twins to Greece towards the end of last year. And she had a stroke, a pretty bad stroke. So her right side, left side stroke, right side impacted, left side of the brain. And she was discovered after 48 hours. So that's not good news, because the swelling and the damage and all that stuff. And she got I couldn't figure out from the way she wrote it, but either a month or 2 months of rehab in Greece. Then she got with the kids, and then she was brought back here. And I have the email, but I just read it a few hours ago. Her right arm was stuck to her. It was totally lost all differentiation. She couldn't move it. It was painful all the time. Of course, they tried to make her move stuff. It was very painful. And, the whole right side, and she could barely walk. And she just somehow discovered the videos of my work, the movement lessons. And she says that after doing them for 6 months, it not all happened in one day. She can barely tell that she had a stroke in her walk. Her arm now, without pain, can do way more. The fingers are coming to life. And that's the part that I love. It's not all there, it's not like, oh, we fixed it. She is in the process, and it builds upon itself, and the brain differentiates. It literally grows itself. So if we take it, like Sue described, on a path that it's built, I loved what Sue said. We are built to do well. We are built to learn. We are built to heal. So she has figured to do it by herself through just, I don't know, X number of movement lessons. So that's, I mean, hello. I mean, I think I secured a place.
Sharing those miracles is important. And it's not just a miracle. Everybody can, if we understand the ability, as you both do, understand the ability of the body to heal, we need to be reminded by professionals that our body has an innate ability to heal itself if we just work with it. And that is huge information, because a lot of us give up.
Yeah, and love it by paying attention, love it by what Sue said. If you're mad, you have a good reason to be mad. That doesn't mean you want to stay mad. You want to, again, differentiate out of it, have other options what to do with it. Yeah. I mean, that's why I keep saying possibilities. Awareness opens possibilities. Yeah.
I mean, Sue, I know that you work with a large number of people, and you take them through classes and the processes of your particular book. Could you share with us a little bit about the energy codes that you teach and how that whole system works in the body?
Absolutely. I've kind of been hinting at it with some of the simple things that we've been saying, that basically when something is upsetting to you, or when you have a dream or a desire, an inspiration. Either way, the reason that we're upset is a circuitry issue. If we had all of our circuits firing, we would be able to see the situation for what it is and have a response to it that we wouldn't take home with us and go to sleep with it and wake up the next day and still be harboring it. We would process it in the moment. We would deal with the situation at hand. And if we don't have the right circuits turned on, then the brain isn't really able to process what we're witnessing. And so it stuffs it, it sets it aside and says, I'm going to deal with that at some point. And so likewise, if we have dreams and desires that we would like to manifest in our lives, but they're not happening, it also is a circuitry issue, that there is some energetic and some kind of transmission that isn't acceptable to my subconscious. And so I keep it at bay because it's too different from how I'm used to operating. And so that dream is vibrating at a frequency here, and my system is vibrating here, and my subconscious won't let me make that kind of a leap. And so I have to incrementally upgrade myself until that dream is within reach of what my subconscious would perceive as a safe amount of change in order to maintain homeostasis or safety or well-being. And so what we're doing with the energy codes is incrementally up-leveling in similar fashions to how Anat is speaking, but just a different approach. But the theory is very, very similar, because the brain is the brain and the body is the body and consciousness is consciousness, and it all works together in a particular way. And so what I'm saying is that when you think of the thing that's upsetting, or you think of the dream that's not manifesting, which also might be upsetting, there's an area in your body that is going to reveal where the attention needs to go in terms of your consciousness getting online and you building circuits, becoming aware in ways that you've been asleep, becoming awake in ways that you've been asleep. And so if I think about what I see in the news and it's upsetting to me, or I think about a dream that I would love to manifest, this vision for my life that's not happening, it might be upsetting to me. There's a corresponding area of my body that is going to be contracting when I think of it or when I think of it, no matter which it is, whether it's something I would love to have or something I'd really love to be finished with. And either way, if it's affecting us, there's an area in the body that will show us how to start to work with it in the most effective way. So if it gets you in the chest, it means something different than if it gets you in the throat, and it differently again if it gets you in the gut. And so, and any other place of the body. So the idea is to become aware and allow the body to tell the mind what needs to happen next. Because I think of it like this: the soul speaks to the body and the body speaks to the mind, and the mind doesn't listen. The mind is off writing stories about how wrong it is and never should have happened and those kinds of things. And so now we're getting the mind to pay attention to the body so that it can start to collect and connect with this soulful healer within. And so wherever that attention goes when you're listening to the news, you watch. It's going to have you here, or your mind's going to go there. You're going to feel something in your gut, whether your mind goes there or you feel something physically. Some people haven't been living in their bodies, so they can't feel very well, but their mind will go straight to it. Like, where should I build some circuits so I can handle this situation better? Boom, or boom, or boom. It will take you there in an instant. And then the idea is to hug that and to start breathing. And I teach people how to breathe up and down the central channel core of the body, breathe slow in the belly and so forth, and start to build a pathway for the energy to move where the energy is blocked. And that's what it's showing you in the moment of upset, where the energy is getting blocked. So we don't want it to be blocked. We want it to be moving and flowing, because that's how we heal. And that's how we upgrade when energy is in movement.
So you're increasing the communication lines between the part that's dormant or asleep or upset,
Yes.
and you're waking up between the conscious mind, the body, and the soul, and they're all talking to each other. And just by starting that communication, the circuits start to light up.
Just by beginning, just by putting our attention on it, the mind magnifies whatever it's focused on. If it's focused on the news 24/7, the body has to respond to that. if it's focused on how am I reacting to this news? What is it with me that is overreacting here, there, or wherever in such a manner that it's keeping me awake at night, that it's not allowing me to sleep, it's not allowing me to eat properly, it's not allowing me to communicate with people that I care about or that I love, or spend time with myself, that, it has a hold of me, and it's not supposed to. We are supposed to be able to take it and consume it so that it's not consuming us. And so the body is showing us where we need to do some specific work. Always, it's always, whether it's Anat's, attention to where is the friction, where is the disconnect, where is movement not happening, where is there lack of integration, or in the way that I'm working with it, where can you sense and feel that energy flowing and where is it not flowing, and using the means of that we were born with to get that energy moving again so that we can start to feel our wherewithal in this life. Because these things, as we mentioned earlier in our call today, these things they're going to keep happening. They're not going away anytime soon. So rather than just trying to develop some coping skills, let's one-upsman it even further and say, how is this serving me? Because life is supposed to be awakening me and serving me. I'm not here to survive. I'm here to thrive.
Right.
So
Right.
if it's true, then how is this helping me thrive? And if we can just turn it from our perspective, it will start to have an entirely different impact on us altogether.
Yes, and those coping skills are things like denial or addictions or things like that we don't have any control of. But this whole idea of expanding into it, of thriving into it, is where we can go with our dreams, because we still have incredible work to do in the world. And the more we're awake, the more we serve as models and mentors to others to wake up as well. You don't have to be teaching this work, just being the work is
Yes.
all the model you need to be. You could be a cashier at the supermarket, and if you hold that light in your body, others will see it in just a split second. And I'm a huge fan of waking up light workers, because we're everywhere. We're everywhere. We're in the shopping lines. We're at the toll booth. We're helping people on customer service lines. Hold that light inside of yourself so that you can ignite those that you touch on a daily basis for 2 seconds, 5 minutes, a deep relationship, whatever it is. It's our responsibility to wake up that light in ourselves. And I think body work and what you're doing with the energy codes and not what we are doing with neuro movement is how to wake up that light inside of us. People need us. People need people. And healed people heal people. So this is one of the reasons why I feel it's just so responsible to have this conversation, so we all can understand it's not for that person over there to wake up or for someone else to do it and teach it. It's every single one of us has the capacity to wake up that light in ourselves and impact another. And that's just my personal pulpit, but I feel that strongly, and I know that you both do as well. And I share that. Anat, I wanted to ask you, in your work, how do you wake up that light in the human being?
Well, without getting into the techniques, and maybe a few things about it, I many years ago felt that what I really do when I'm useful to people is I help them connect to themselves.
Yeah.
So I become and what I guide people to do, either through words or through my hands, people connect to themselves, but the connection is created a lot by forming more of themselves, literally becoming more than they were a minute ago. And I think of it in terms of the neurocircuitry that, so you refer to a number of times. And when I wrote my first book, as I was thinking it through and struggling how to organize it and all that stuff, I realized that our brain, genetically and otherwise, we are built to continue growing, evolving, and becoming more refined and complex in the sense of having more freedom. And we just we have the same number of muscles, the same number of bones, the same structure, but what we can do with it and how we are being is endless. So it never comes to a destination. The destination is the process and the quality of the process. And that's what I believe I bring to people. And I, define the codes. And I ask, what about what I do works? And I define the 9 essentials, which I find to be conditions that when I create for myself or place another person in, they just thrive. They just start learning. They can't help it. It's not like they have a choice. That's what makes the brain wake up and grow. So that's what I believe I do, and my language is movement.
Yes.
That's and
That's
means of communication. And the 9 essentials are the way. Yeah.
That's why this has been such a beautiful conversation, and I so appreciate both of you. And for anyone watching, you've had the lower thirds on the bottom of your frame, but drsuemorter.com is how you can find out about Dr. Sue and her work, and it's drsuemorter.com. And Anat Baniel method, ANATBANIEL method.com, and you can find out more about Anat's deep body of work. Both of you, I'm just so grateful. We made it work. Yay.
Yes, indeed.
And thank you for all that you contribute to the world. Thank you so much.
Oh, and thank you, Lisa, for the amazing thing that you do to bring everyone together in the way that you do. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Love it.
You bring so much to millions and millions of people, and you're just such a love. You're just a love bug. You're amazing.
Because I have a squishy ball that I use. All right. Thank you again. And you can always, if you loved any part of this, share it with a friend through the podcast. You can listen to it whenever you choose to, the Aware Show podcast. And I am Lisa Garr. Until next time, I invite you to stay aware.